your worst, give me your best shot. Do your worst, is that all you've got? Do your worst, give me your best shot. Do your worst, is that all you've got? Do your worst.
Welcome to the first episode of this new show called Do Your Worst, in which I am trying to find the worst horror film or horror-related film that I can find, suggested by you guys. You sent these in, you recommended these movies to me to find, and I asked you what was the worst horror movie you've ever seen, and these are 7 of the movies that you suggested. I chose them randomly, and what I did was I sorted them based upon how they were rated on IMDb and Letterboxd, and I tallied up their scores. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through those movies from the most well-reviewed one down to the one with the worst ratings, and I'm going to give you mine at the ending of the episode. But let's just see if you guys did your worst. Number 7. Our first film that we're going to talk about was recommended to me by Fruit of the Tomb 4568, and it's The Wet Ones. And yeah, it's weird from minute 1, since there's Barbie dolls against a green screen and this weird voiceover.
Born in the same moment, I was Kate the princess.
And this robot, I think, and I suppose it's a series of segments and skits. The first one has our main doll killing baby Spice, but there's also live action actors, and the dolls are members of a group called the Disco Bunnies. I think, I have no idea if I'm getting any of this right. There's a character called the Disco Master, but she also may be a Dream Master. And look, I'm about 20 minutes into this, and I don't really know what's going on because there's not much plot. So I'm gonna look online and read the description. But there's really no plot description there either. IMDb simply says a movie about intertwining stories, including a great deal of arguing, profanity, assaults, mutilation, and murder. And yeah, so far, that's accurate, except for the stories part. Here's a short clip so you can see what this whole movie is.
Denmark, if you can hear me, my name is Puppy Boy. That's Puppy Boy. I am a musician.
There's a Katy Perry doll, and of course a black Ken doll, and if you can guess that they gave him a ridiculous stereotype of a voice, then you'd be 100% correct. And look, this is the very first film that I'm doing for Do Your Worst, and I already hate it. I'm regretting this entire decision and series because this is difficult to get through. A while back, I covered a movie called Nightmare Museum, and it was a really hard one to watch, and this reminds me very much of that. But here's the kicker, it's far longer. This movie, and I'm using that word under protest, is 2.5 hours long. 2.5 hours of this.
Princess Jasmine, jacket from Massachusetts. Don't want to go on stuff.
Well played, Fruit of the Tomb. You may have won this series immediately. But no, I will continue on through the end. At around the 1 hour and 15 minute mark, there's an extended sequence at a disco or something, and then a man in an Elvis suit karaokeing Suspicious Minds terribly.
Suspicious minds.
And right about here is where I started to contemplate deleting the entire channel. Anyway, this is both written and directed by someone called Wigwolf and was their first film. And here's the crazy part. This is easily the highest rated film on this list. The rating on IMDb is a full 5.9 out of 10. For comparison, the original Leprechaun has a 4.8, so this film is ranked more than a full point higher than that. The Letterboxd score is a 3.4 out of 5. The original Friday the 13th only has a 3 there. A 3! This has a 3.4. If I switch that to being out of 10, then it's a full 6.8. So this movie has a combined 12.7 out of 20. So this is the highest score that I'm getting. But I have a feeling that it was rated by people who were massively stoned, because this feels like a Tim and Eric thing, except 20 times longer and without the, jokes. I guess also Andy Dick is in here somewhere. I'm assuming he's one of the voices, but I'll be damned if I know which.
I'm Titanic Sinclair! I'm Titanic Sinclair! No one fucks with Titanic Sinclair! I am Titanic Sinclair!
I'm the Bunny King, and I know my way around a carrot sandwich, but I like my sandwiches dry.
Number 6. Let's go now to one from my patron, Professor Victor, from the YouTube channel Horror Movie Syllabus, and it's Black Devil Doll from 2007. And the good professor and I have very opposite sensibilities when it comes to film, so I'm actually expecting to love this one. I've seen the original Black Devil Doll from Hell from 1984 several times, and it's on the 80s Project either recently or will be soon, and I get a kick out of that, so let's see how this one holds up to it. It begins with an execution, and we're told that it was the leader of a black power group that killed a bunch of people. And there's this young lady chilling on the couch and decides to use her squeegee board by herself, which we all know is a terrible idea. They make sure to zoom in on her cleavage as much as they possibly can, and she contacts Mobius' spirit, who possesses her ventriloquist's dummy, turning it black. She falls for him immediately, and they do the deed. And this is now the second film in a row that features sex scenes with dolls, and I'm hoping that this is not a trend with this list. Well, when he tells her that he wants to sleep with other women, she calls him the N-word, but then calls some friends to come over. They do, and I guess have an impromptu car wash, like you do, and they do a literal commercial for Rotten Cotton, who appears to be gone now, but their website just says they're coming back. So Heather leaves, and the doll springs into action, drugging the girls, and then assaulting and killing them. Sometimes not in that order. And yeah, this is as tasteless as it sounds. It's clear that it's meant to be over the top, and not only push the racial stereotypes as much as possible, but they just mine the concept for as much sleaze as they can. So this is another directorial debut, and this is from Jonathan Lewis Lewis, and it's the only feature that he's done outside of a 2024 Tubi original thriller called Sinister Surgeon. He's also done a bunch of shorts, and also did a segment in an anthology film that a couple of my friends worked on called Tenants as well. Lewis also appears in the film as the young living version of Mubia in the news footage of him. He says that the film is not an official remake of Black Devil Doll from Hell, nor is it meant to be a sequel, and is more of like an homage. It's also not that poorly rated on the sites, since it has a 4.1 on IMDb and a 2.7 on Letterboxd. So if I double that, it's a 5.4 out of 10, and the film has a total of 9.5 out of 20, which is still a fairly respectable score, although there's a bunch of reviews there calling it the worst movie they've ever seen. I won't say that though, because I think this is pretty terrible, but it's really not that bad. It's dumb and purposefully offensive, and it's not all that watchable or fun, but it's really not annoying or anything. It's fine, and even has a handful of genuinely funny bits, and I'm just happy that it's only around an hour, and not 2.5 of them.
Bitches always be making my black ass hungry.
Number 5. Next up is one that was suggested by another patron, AJ. He also has a channel called The Juiciest Slice, and he mentioned that I should cover 1990s horror comedy Dead Men Don't Die. It starts with OG Trapper John, and he's a news anchor, and one night he discovers that there's shady stuff going on in the building that he works in. Late at night, he sneaks in to see what's going on and discovers that they're drug smugglers, but they catch him and shoot him dead. His body is discovered by Navin's mom, and it turns out that she knows voodoo, and she calls on Damballa, and he gives her the power she begs of him. His co-worker is Mary Ingalls, and she calls the cops to report his missing body.
Dead men don't walk.
Ooh, you're close, Sky, but that's not the title. Try again. Jafuka's spell works, and Barry is brought back to life, and he's a zombie in her thrall, so she takes him home. And I should point out that this is billed as a horror comedy, and it's a third of the way into it, and there really hasn't been any jokes so far. But then they try to have him lead a newscast while zombified, and it's meant to be humorous, but it's oh so not.
And make sure that dead men don't squawk.
Closer, I guess, but it's still not it. Then the thugs figure out that Barry's not quite dead and keep trying to put him down while he sort of gets his bumbling revenge. So this is by Malcolm Marmorstein, who wrote and directed, and for the third time out of 3 films, this was his directorial debut. However, he had some earlier gigs as a writer and some big stuff since he's the writer of the original Pete's Dragon and Return from Witch Mountain. This one has a 4.2 on IMDb, so it's a little higher than Black Devil Doll on there, but it's only sitting at a 2 on Letterboxd. So doubling that, it gives this one a combined score of 8.2, more than a full point lower than BDD. And yeah, this one gets to me because I've said a whole bunch that I can stomach bad horror, because horror done poorly is often still very amusing. But this is bad comedy, if it really counts as comedy. And that's a different type of pain. Like, this movie's entire source of laughs seems to be, hey, Elliot Gould, there's the camera, make a silly face. And that's what you get for 90 minutes, which is an hour shorter than the wet ones. So I'll take that, I guess.
Me.
Number 4. Here we go now with another one, and this was recommended by Fishman6660. And let's check out Kill Them and Eat Them from 2003. It has this guy getting attacked by a guy in a weird mask, and he thinks that he gets away, only to have his face ripped off. We then meet Dr. Gore, and he's underground and making mutant creatures and sending them out into the world. There's also a guy who works in this building that doesn't have signs, I guess, and instead just has paper taped to doors to say what's what. He's on the search for a severed hand that was found in a park, but there's also a guy and girl wandering around what appears to be a large industrial park. Are these random plot threads connected? Well, I guess so, because that mutant guy is here and attacks them and kidnaps them. The doc tells the girl that she's been infected with microscopic creatures that are in her body and makes it modify itself. And he wants to shoot her up with an antidote that will fight them off. The doc's assistant wants to get the formula for himself to get revenge on his enemies and talks to the mutants for a while, and those cops end up finding one of the mutants and chase it to some ill-fitting music. Those agents eventually find their hideout, which I should point out is just some abandoned industrial plant, and it's where like 99% of this movie takes place. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of plot here. It's mainly just people lurking around this one location for one reason or another, killing time until it gets to feature length. It's by Connell Pendergast, and This is the first film here that is not our director's first work, as he had put out a couple of things before this. This looks like the last full-length film that he did though, since everything after this were shorts, but he's still going. And this one has a 2.9 on IMDb, but fared better on Letterboxd, where it has a 2.6. So if we double that and add them, this one has an 8.1. So this was ever so slightly lower than Dead Men Don't Die. But this is a whole different breed of movie. It's a backyard effort made for what appears to be the price of a carton of eggs right about now. And you know what? I'll be damned if I didn't actually kind of enjoy it. It definitely takes too long to get going. And it's so damn cheap. But it's got some fun, silly stuff and wild monster action made with a backyard charm that I was into. So thank you, Fishman6660. I needed this silly reprieve. Number 3. Now let's go to one that was suggested by Rogers1000. And this one is Kentucky Fried Zombies, which appears like it's more known by the title Diner, and then in parentheses, Get It, and it's from 2009. And we meet Rose, and she's played by Maria Olsen, and she's just in such a range of higher profile stuff and also bottom of the barrel crap. She's a waitress in a little roadside diner, and let me tell you, she's acting her heart out like she's in a prestigious 5-star production and not Kentucky Fried Zombies. But then it turns out that the guy she's talking to is a killer and murders everyone in there. Shortly after, while he's cleaning up, a young couple arrives, so he pretends to be working there, and just as he's about to kill them, the local sheriff arrives. Things are tense for a little while until the cook shows back up, even though he was killed earlier. But then Rose is a zombie too, and they go on the attack. And Ken reveals his devious nature as they try to figure out how to survive. But like, there's only 2 zombies and they're really slow. And at one point, Ken gets knocked out, and yet no one just leaves. There's no reason for them to stick around, and I'm not sure what they're doing there or what the goal is. I guess I'd have to ask Patrick Horvath, since he wrote and directed it, and we're back to it being a directorial debut, but he did some other things, including one of the segments in Southbound. It says online that the budget for this is around $500K, which seems kinda high. Like it does look polished and professional, but it also looks cheap. This is at a 3.9 on IMDb, which is higher than Kill Them and Eat Them, but it only has a 1.9 on Letterboxd, so the combined score after the double is a 7.7. And Rogers1000 called this one the worst movie he'd ever seen, and I actually think it's a decently made film that has good acting in it and some nice production value, but is probably the most pointless story I've seen in a while. There's just no stakes to anything and no tension because their situation is 100% avoidable, and easily so. But yeah, I mean, I didn't mind this one at all. It's not fun and not enjoyable, but it's at least not painful.
Duke, where the heck are you, buddy? That didn't take long.
Number 2. Okay, originally I selected this on like an online wheel program, and it selected The Creeping Terror, which was suggested by BillStar2. But afterwards, I realized that I had already covered that one in a previous worst horror movie list, so I figured I should replace it. And Christy decided that she wanted to get in on the action and torture me, and she suggested I watch 2010's Wake the Witch. It has these 3 girls out in the woods, and while walking back, they find an old chain. They say it's connected to an old story called Wake the Witch, and 100 years ago, the townspeople killed a witch in the woods and put the chains there to keep her spirit calm. However, they say if you want to know your future, you can wake her up and ask her by going to the tree where she was hung, walk around it, and kiss your hand. But if you don't ask your question quick enough, she'll kill you. They find this spot, although there's no tree there, and they leave. That's the pre-credit scene, and basically nothing happens, and it's 12 minutes long. Deb lives with her mom and brother, who lives in a bedroom with bright yellow walls with no furniture, which is the real horror here. But he also hangs out in the living room watching TV, where he has just like a jug of orange juice and a whole bunch of wadded up tissue. And like, ew. He's meant to be sick and blowing his nose, I guess, but come on, buddy, who are you fooling? She's also fighting with her boyfriend, and I should point out that this is almost a half hour into this movie and nothing's really happened yet. Eventually they head back to the woods, but Trixie passes out and then has a seizure. And then there's more family drama, and oh dear, this is almost 2 hours long. 2 hours long. To reiterate, this is about 45 minutes in, and there's been really nothing spooky or supernatural or anything to do with the witch, really. It's just about Deb's life. But then again, it's not, because not much is even happening with her. Finally, at the hour mark, something happens as they go back to the woods. But this time, there's a bunch of dudes in dirty hoodies who chase them and drag Karen off. But then it shifts back into ponderous wondering. And oh my god, there's almost an hour left to go in this. And you know, the reason why Christy told me to watch this is because she watched it ages ago when we first started dating. And she watched it on Netflix because there was a time in which you could find crappy, low-budget horror flicks on Netflix. There was a ton of them. She said she was watching this, said it was one of the worst things she'd ever seen, and then fell asleep. But when she woke up, it was still on. So she assumed it was around 4 hours long. And she was wrong, but oh my god, does it feel like it. This was both written and directed by Dorothy Boram. And yep, directorial debut. She's only made a handful of things after this and is from Nebraska, which is where this was filmed. It's our lowest ranked feature so far, since it's only at a 2.5 on IMDb, lower than any other film here, and only at a 1.6 on Letterboxd, giving us the total score of only 5.7 out of that possible 20, which is pretty rough. Oh, and by the way, this one waits until the final couple of minutes to have anything to do with a witch at all, although it maybe seems to insinuate that there's aliens involved. I don't know. I just know that I hated it. And Christy, we have to talk. Number 1. Okay, we are closing out this roster with one from 2024 called Do Not Open, that was suggested by Jerry the Ghost 42. It begins with a young man shooting someone and then walking away while on his phone. We then are introduced to a teenage girl who gets into a fight with her parents and then downloads an app that's sent to her. That night, something enters their router and gets into their camera. We meet the rest of the family, including her dad, little brother, and mother, who looks about the same age as her. They're just your typical American family, except everyone has a thick accent because they're all Swedish in real life. Things start to happen and the family's secrets are revealed, like dad gets caught masturbating and seemingly having an affair, and the son, because the characters have no names here and are just listed as son, daughter, mom, and dad, and they all say that there's problems with the internet. Mom's obsessed with this online guru guy, while dad is great value Joel McHale, but everyone starts hearing things. Mother gets a phone call saying her son is harassing girls, and son thinks he hears his parents call him a disappointment. And then everyone just starts to get mad at everyone else. Dad's clearly got his own problems because when he finds out his son has been accused of assaulting someone, he basically just tells him that girls are always going to say that and they're all just riled up. And oh, also, Dad watches a cam view of his daughter having sex, although she's actually not, because I guess this virus or whatever that's gripping the router can also not only create voices but video images. But yeah, this is almost an hour in, and this entire movie has been in this house with everyone just being mad at each other. And oh my god, is it boring. It's just watching the dullest, most annoying people that just never talk to each other or whatever, and are easily fooled by things they see or hear. So just, I don't know, most families in the US. The video gets released, and I guess it's convincing enough that everyone believes it, and everyone is just like, must be real. And the daughter reacts to it like this.
We're only kids. I don't know what that is. Nothing happened. You can't share this. Where did it come from?
And oh man, is this unbearable. This is torture, and it's only 90 minutes, but it feels like 4 hours. And here's the scoop. This one only has a 2.5 on IMDb. Tied for the lowest here with Wake the Witch. But here's where I talk about something, and that something is Letterboxd's weird scoring system. If you look at this movie's page, it says that it has an average rating of 2.6. But look at these numbers. Does this look like an average of 2.6? Like the largest number of rankings are for a half star, and there's 87 of them. So how is it a 2.6? I tallied up the scores manually like I usually do, and this movie only has an actual score of a 1.2. A far cry from 2.6, and that's because of their weird weighted system. But this is actually just a 1.2, so its total score is only a combined 4.9, the lowest score on here, hands down. And it is terrible. It's unbelievably boring and annoying, and it's by Brian Babarek, and is his first feature film as well. It's a Swedish film shot in Sweden, which is why everyone has those thick accents. And this one is sheer torture. And Jerry the Ghost 42, you are now my most hated enemy.
If you hand it to me, I can just look the other way.
So now let's go through these and decide who did their worst. We had 7 movies of varying degrees of terrible, but all of these were someone's worst film. My most tolerable of the bunch was Kill Them and Eat Them. I'm probably giving this one a fair amount of leeway because of the backyard nature of it, but I actually really liked the crazy monster stuff at the end. It was kind of fun. After that, I'm putting Black Devil Doll, and having this back-to-back with Kill Them seems to show that I'm okay with tongue-in-cheek, cheap schlock, and that's exactly what this is. It's dumb and tries way, way too hard, but it's okay for what it was, and I was amused at least part of the time. The next least worst was probably Dead Men Don't Die. Sure, it was pretty intolerable comedy-wise, and just absolutely not funny. But it was well made enough and not boring, so I could deal with it. I wouldn't ever want to watch it again, though. Next up is Diner, or Kentucky Fried Zombies, which also wasn't horrible to watch, but was just so overwhelmingly pointless. I actually thought some of the actors were strong enough that it didn't bother me for the most part. The first 15 minutes or so actually had me think it was going to be a good movie since the setup was strong, but then it just sort of faltered, but not enough for me to be mad at it. The third worst thing I had to endure here is, let's see, well, Wake the Witch. We've now made the transition from things I can deal with to movies that actually hurt me. because this was so dull and uninteresting, and it may have damaged my marriage forever. The second worst one, and this was close because I felt the same way about this one as Wake of the Witch, and it's Do Not Open. It's just so frustrating and head-scratching, but not in a good way. This is one that I was angry at when it was over. But the worst thing we watched for this roster, the absolute hardest thing to get through, was The Wet Ones. Maybe it was the painfully unfunny content, but it was most likely the 2.5-hour runtime that did it. But I hated every second of this and never want to see it or think of it again. So congratulations, Fruit of the Tomb 4568, you have done your worst. So there you have it, 7 movies of varying degrees of terribleness, and yep, this was pretty hard. There was some pretty terrible stuff in here, but there was also a couple of enjoyable ones in there that I didn't think were that bad. So let me know what you've thought of these down below in the comments. I'd like to hear that. If you enjoyed this and like seeing me be tortured, hit that like button, of course. Subscribe to the channel so you get updates on when new videos come out, hitting that bell so that you get the notifications. And also check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines and help support this channel. And yes, one other thing. I want you to leave in the comments down below what you think the worst horror movie that you've ever seen before. And maybe I will feature it on this series because, yeah, go ahead. You know, name the worst possible thing you possibly can. Come on. Do your worst.
Do your worst, give me your best shot. Do your worst, is that all you've got? Give me your best shot.